Welcome to Monday stream. Today I'll present you the latest news from the world of transport. We will look at the farmers' protests. We'll pay attention to the pressing need for combined transport and talk about changes in the law on cabotage in Norway, which will come into force soon. Due to the huge delays in VAT refunds from Germany, we will also take a look at what is happening there. Finally, staying on the topic of Germany, I will talk about the current situation of the Tesla factory near Berlin. Now, let's take a look at the materials are found for today's stream. Just a second. Yes. We've got British farmers plan more French-style tractor protests. Organizers call for national effort to protest against low supermarket prices and cheap imports from post-Brexit deals. Farmers, unhappy at low supermarket prices and cheap food imports from post-Brexit trade deals, have vowed to renew their French-style protest with tractors. Demonstrations modeled on those across the Channel in recent months have sprung up in the UK, most notably in Wales and southern England. On Thursday, Andrew Gibson, a farmer in Kent who has been centrally involved in organising previous actions, said more were to come. We are definitely taking some actions this weekend, and we are calling on others to try to join us and to do their own things as well. It needs to be a national effort because it's not all about us, it's about the industry as a whole. Last Friday night, he and his brother organized farmers for a go-slow protest that caused traffic jams around the port of Dover. Activists in several parts of Wales have held a series of protests, including parking tractors outside the constituency office of the Rural Affairs Minister, Leslie Griffiths, and blaring their horns, according to Farmers' weekly reports. Gibson said that the next protest in Kent would hopefully be bigger numbers, and it will be tractors, and will be trying to get better messaging out about what we are trying to achieve. The whole industry is on its knees, to be honest. He said the dairy boys are the arable boys, the whole industry. We are just getting clobbered by the supermarkets, by the government, by post-Brexit trade deals, by imports of cheap rubbish. Yeah, the same is in situation in Poland, for example. We are getting in from everywhere. So the situation is getting serious also in the UK. Let's take a look at the short video I found for you on Bloomberg Television on YouTube. Just give me a second.
The farmers have had it. They've taken to the streets across Europe, protesting cuts to tax breaks, competition from cheaper imports, onerous environmental regulations, and sprawling bureaucracy. The spark came from Germany, where the government rolled back agricultural diesel subsidies. If that sounds familiar, that's because in 2018, it was a seemingly innocuous fuel tax that unleashed the Gilets jaunes across France. France is the biggest agricultural producer in Europe, worth about 100 billion euros every year, but still imports about 50% of its fruits and vegetables. In Germany, agriculture employs less than 1 million people, but it accounts for more than half of the nation's land use. Across the board, though, in GDP terms, agriculture is minuscule. But in very real terms, what is more important than feeding your population? Plus, issues from climate change to the war in Ukraine have highlighted the importance of local food security. In Germany, a partial backtrack by the government wasn't enough. Nor in France. Even the EU has had to flinch. What makes it even harder for politicians is the overwhelming support for farmers by the broader population. Agriculture benefits from huge subsidies. About a third of the whole EU budget goes to farmers, to the tune of about 55 billion euros in 2021. Plus, German farmers enjoyed record-breaking revenue last year. But when you speak to them, it's not just about money. There's also an impression that lofty climate and trade goals are being issued by lawmakers far from the soil that grows the food that sustains them, and an impression which anti-establishment politicians hope to harvest in a year rich with elections.
Yeah, and here.
Even the line
say is a crisis. Ali Rogan reports on what's driving these protests and what it means for food supply and climate policies.
They come in convoys of tractors, armed with the fruits, bread, even the livestock of their labor. From Italy to India, farmers are taking to the streets, sometimes facing violence, sometimes causing it, protesting policies they say kill their livelihoods.
Agriculture has been on its knees for a long time, and we have reached the end of our rope.
In fact, farmers in dozens of countries on 6 continents have been staging protests since 2021. This year, most protests have been in European countries and India. The grievances vary by country, but there's one common message. Farmers can no longer bear the burden of economic and climate policies.
There's a sense of a rupture in the social contract between farmers and their governments.
Danielle Resnick is a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute.
In the EU, it's a sense that farmers are being forced to unfairly bear the burden of a lot of the EU regulations to meet climate emission targets. In India, there's a sense that farmers are overburdened. They're worried about various shocks, including climate shocks, and they want some type of social protection.
In Europe, those regulations include limits on pesticides and the amount of land they can harvest annually. Farmers there also worry about competition from abroad and Ukraine, which has temporary tariff-free access to EU markets.
Stop zbożu z Ukrainy.
Stop grain from Ukraine. Stop the Green Deal. Stop deciding about our land.
In India, farmers want Prime Minister Narendra Modi to expand a long-standing policy of setting minimum prices for certain crops. In 2021, Modi tried but failed to scrap the policy following an earlier round of protests. Farmers have been marching from the north, where the protests began, to the capital, but police and soldiers have blocked their way.
It is not about whether we go to Delhi or not. We have not come here to clash with our soldiers. We just want our demands met for a law regarding the implementation of the minimum support price.
Experts say the protests are politically timed. Both the Indian and European Parliament elections are set for this spring.
I think farmers' unions are being politically savvy in some ways and trying to get their issues on the top of the political agenda. Even though we think of them as kind of small-scale farmers, they are pretty politically powerful.
And ahead of the votes, leaders seem to be listening to the farmers. France scrapped a plan to end tax breaks for tractor diesel, and the EU abandoned a plan to reduce pesticide use and postponed a deadline for farmers to leave some land fallow to improve biodiversity. It also omitted farmers from a recommendation to reduce greenhouse gases by 90% by 2040.
Farmers need a worthwhile business case for nature-enhancing measures. Perhaps we have not made that case convincingly.
But many stakeholders, like some European moderates and environmentalists, believe politicians are caving to farmers to prevent them from deepening alliances with far-right groups who've taken up their cause. And they note that agriculture is a major driver of climate change, accounting for more than 10% of the EU's total greenhouse gases.
I think an attack of the green agenda is seen as really an opportunity for right-wing parties to gain more seats in the parliament at the expense of green parties. They see this as an opportunity to really mobilize on grievances, to perhaps forward their own agenda around migration policies and other types of nativist policies that would resonate with some of EU farmers' concerns.
But some experts say leaders must find ways to make the transition less burdensome for farmers and the entire system they represent.
most of the world's food is produced by small farms, family farms, and they're the ones who don't have the depth, the financial depth, and the resources to really shoulder this burden in the way that they're being asked to. They are being asked to adjust to environmental regulations in a fast period of time.
Chris Hagedorn is a professor of global food politics at Sciences Po in Paris.
This is where governments can step in and start spending money differently to address the cost, not only to these farmers, but the cost that we're seeing from environmental damage, climate change, temperature increases, violent weather increases.
After all, as the protesters' signs say, without farmers, there is no food. For PBS News Weekend, I'm Ali Rogan.
Yeah, a lot of information. I think these were two really good materials. We should know that there are protests around the world, not only in Europe, not only in Germany, France, UK, Poland, Spain, but also in India. We've seen also Mexico. So yeah, don't we should remember that it's very important and it will affect all of us in the future. So let's move on to a new topic. I will talk a little bit about combined transport. When I opened news today, I've noticed that there are a lot of materials and news about combined transport, and I decided to find two the most important ones, the widest ones, and I will read them to you right now. Combined transport under pressure shows UPAC 2023 financial report. The latest financial report demonstrates the challenges facing combined road rail transport in Europe, showing a decline in demand and increasing pressure on rail infrastructure. In 2023, the Swiss railway company UPAC Group transported approximately 975,000 road consignments in combined transport, a decrease of approximately 11.7% compared to the previous year. All transport segments of network were affected by the negative development, albeit the varying degrees. And the company said in the core market of transalpine transport through Switzerland, UPAC recorded a comparatively moderate decline of 7.6% road consignments. This negative development is mainly due to the decline in demand for transport in Europe. The recessionary trend started in the autumn of 2022 in connection with the Ukraine and the energy crisis and affected a large part of the world economy in 2023. To make matters worse, a number of factors are putting increasing pressure on the rail system, according to UPAC. Capacity, bottlenecks, delays, and cancellations are the order of the day on many corridors. The serious accident in the Gotthard-based tunnels in August was an additional exceptional factor. The complete closure of one of the two tunnels tubes until September 2024 significantly reduces the capacity of the line. The massive double-digit cost increases in the rail system are also counterproductive. High track and traction costs are out of all proportion to the service provided, according to the company. Instead, the system is being deprived of the support it urgently needs, especially in times of the crisis. The current unplanned significant reduction in track access charge subsidized in Germany is worsening the framework conditions for combined transport, and given the current emerging situation will inevitably lead to the traditional costs of being passed on the top on the market. On the other hand, the subsidy policy of the Swiss Federal Office of Transport is viewed positively by the Swiss Railway Company, which adds in its press release that the support measures are stable and therefore have an anti-cyclical effect, which creates confidence and supports the market in the long term. This makes it all the more important to continue to support Transalpine combined transport in the coming years. Yes. Smaller measures such as the provision of parking sidings or can also provide some relief. Here, trains can wait to continue their journey in the event of disruption rather than being prevented from departing. Sidings are already in place near Doticon and can be activated. Despite the current difficult economic situation, UPEC is sticking to the strategy for the further development of climate-friendly combined transport. The European network is being adapted to market demand as the situation requires. And another news about combined transport. IRU position paper calls for simplified policy to promote the combined transport in Europe. In its recently published position paper, IRU calls for a fundamental revision of the proposal for a combined transport directive, as Europe's road hauliers involved in intermodal and combined transport are concerned that the added complexity in the new proposal will discourage rather than encourage the use of intermodal and combined transport solutions. The International Road Transport Union has released a comprehensive position paper outlining its stance on the European Commission's proposal on combined goods transport, highlights the importance of intermodal and combined transport in meeting future freight demand. The IRU urges for a radical overhaul of existing policies to encourage model cooperation rather than a forced model shift. IRU advocates for the adoption of simplified version of distance criteria to determine eligibility for combined transport incentives. This mode-neutral approach aims to give intermodal and combined transport an advantage over unimodal options. The union stresses the need for additional incentives for road goods transport operators opting for intermodal and combined transport. These incentives should include relief from administrative burdens and cost, investment support for compatible road goods, transport vehicles, environmental bonuses, and compensations for delays and cancellations under defined conditions. Yes. IRU insists on avoiding additional administrative burdens and costs for the use of unaccompanied intermodal and combined transport solutions, thereby fostering efficiency and affordability in logistic operation. To ensure efficient cross-border operations, IRU calls for compatible national policy frameworks and a supervisory role for the European Commission in overseeing their implementation. Instead of relying on state aid, IRU suggests exploring alternative options such as taxes, charges, and duties linked to performance criteria to enhance competitiveness and prevent distortion in the market. Yes, and the news are related to cabotage in Norway. Next month, the law will change in Norway. With new powers, the Norwegian authorities will be able to tackle cabotage infringements more effectively. The Norwegian government has announced that from the 1st of March, inspection authorities will be able to charge the certain violations of commercial transport regulations. Up to now, fines for infringements of specific regulations concerning amount other things, cabotage in road haulage have been imposed through procedures. From the 1st of March, the Norwegian Public Road Administration will be able to impose fines on the spot for certain infringements. Inspectors will be able to impose fines during inspections for infringements of several specific cabotage rules in the carriage of goods, for failure to hold a driving license, and for failure to hold a license during carriage. Despite the new powers of the Norwegian Public Roads Administration, administrative proceedings will continue to be initiated in cases of serious infringements. These are the violations that of the cabotage regulations that the Norwegian Public Roads Administration will be able to penalize during roadside checks from March. If it's not possible to document the international journey to Norway, if cabotage has been carried out more than 7 days after the end of the last international journey, where more than 3 cabotage operations have been carried out under a community authorization following an international carriage, where more than 1 transit cabotage operation has been performed, if the transit cabotage has been carried out more than 3 days after arrival in Norway unladen, if the consignment note is incomplete, if the consignment note documentation for national transport is missing from the vehicle, if the cabotage began before the international transport was unloaded. Yes, and now a little bit about VAT from VAT refunds from Germany. Actually, I found it on Polish website, but let me show you the article. Complicated path to VAT refund. German delays and Polish carriers are in difficult situation because they are trying to recover VAT for fuel right now, and there are delays in more than 8 months, 4 months, but so the companies, our clients, for example, are waiting more than 8 months together to receive their money back. In accordance with the provisions of EU directive, tax offices of member states are obliged to issue a decision within 4 months of submitting VAT refund applications. The German tax office significantly exceeds this deadline. Currently, the German tax administration is still processing applications submitted at the turn of May and June 2023. The problem is constantly growing, unfortunately. In July 2023, delays were 2 months, and now they have already reached 4 months. Clearly exceeding the deadlines specified in the regulations. So the situation is not comfortable for our clients and for us. We check your applications and send them very fast, but we don't receive the decision from Germany so fast. Unfortunately, it's more than 7 months, I think, and this is why it's not our fault. It's the Germany situation right now. Okay, and the last case, Tesla resumes production at a German factory after supply chain disruption. There were 2 weeks hiatus due to supply chain disruption caused by the Red Sea crisis. Tesla has resumed full production at its factory near Berlin in Germany. Yes, Tesla confirmed the resumption of operations on the 12th of February, with production returning to full capacity, including night shift. The temporary suspension, which lasted from the 29th of January, was caused by delays in component deliveries due to longer shipping routes as a result of the Red Sea unrest. Despite the setback, Tesla said that efforts were made to mitigate the impact of the disruption, by continuing production where possible and using the downtime for repairs and training, DPA adds. Yes, the disruption caused by the Red Sea crisis not only affected Tesla but also raised concerns among industry analysts about the potential impact on the other auto markets that rely on the affected shipping lanes. Despite this, Tesla has reaffirmed its commitment to maintaining production schedules at its Shanghai factory, which serves the European market and is unaffected by the Red Sea disruption. Okay, I think that's all for today. We'll see you on Wednesday at 12. Thank you for your attention and see you soon.